Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our VisionPro. So what we're going to get out of this class is we're going to talk about how to prototype, develop, and test vision applications in Quick Build. Remember, the first 2 days we're just staying in Quick Build. This is going to allow for us to really focus on the tools and not on the environment yet. Okay, we can really see what's going on with that. We're going to talk about how we're going to acquire images. We're going to talk about when to use each vision tool. Now, do not get confused. We're not going over every single vision tool. We're going to hit the main ones so that you kind of understand what's going on. We're also going to hit calibration, because what we're going to do is we're going to be reading things in pixel coordinates. Well, that doesn't help us because that's going to alter depending on our optical and our spatial setup. So what we want to do is we want to get it into real world. And then finally, we want to take this application and then we want to deploy it, because we're not going to want to give our user the quick build environment. We actually want to give them a little GUI interface or something that's what they're going to interact with. So let's talk a little bit about the hardware first. We're going to talk about the different hardware that we support within VisionPro. We're going to talk about the different utilities that we have available to help with that hardware. Also talk about the different resources available. One of the things that I found was threw me off a bit when I was learning VisionPro the first time was they have a bunch of information, but I didn't know what the information was used for. It's like I'd be sent there and then here, or if you do a search through the help file, you're seeing a whole bunch of stuff, but in different sections, and you're like, but wait, which one's going to help me and when? So I'm going to talk about the different resources, and also I'm going to talk about some security options, because some of you might have been bitten with them already. So what's going to allow for VisionPro to run? Because remember, VisionPro runs on a PC. But we need to have some type of hardware that's going to allow for it to run. Otherwise, someone could just download our software and just go nuts with it. So we have to have some way to control things. So let's talk a little bit about acquisition hardware. One of the most prevalent ones that we're finding now with VisionPro is the GIGI, because it's very easily available, easy to be attached to your system. The cameras that we're going to be using for our labs are actually going to be little Scout Basler or Basler Scout GIGI cameras. Now each camera is going to act as a frame grabber. So it's going to take the image, it's going to digitize it, and then it's going to pull it down into the PEL buffer within the PC. Now, even though it's GIGI, the practical bandwidth is more like 100 megabytes per second. That's just the reality of the situation. But what's cool is you can get up to 100 meter of cable length, because you're dealing with internet now, or Ethernet. So now we don't have to be restricted to like FireWire that has, I want to say like 3 feet or something like that. They don't go very far. We can do some pretty decent distance with that. And we can support up to 255 cameras per Ethernet port. Once again, falls into the Ethernet type line and control, so that's where it's going to pull that from. Now be careful when you're buying GIGI cameras. Make sure that they state that they are GIGI Vision cameras, not just GIGI cameras. This was more of a bigger deal when it first came out. Because what would happen is people say, oh, GIGI camera, I can use that, they connect it up. And it didn't work with us. That's because our software is expecting certain type settings and parameters that camera is going to be given all the time. And what was happening is not all of them were giving all the parameters we were expecting. So as with most things nowadays with technology, a consortium came about, and we're actually part of the GIGI Vision Consortium. So some of the camera manufacturers, some of the vision people all came together, and we started saying, oh, this is how we're going to do our GIGI Vision. So make sure that it says GIGI Vision. Then we also offer FireWire. So your FireWire, very easy to connect up. Both the A and the B versions we support. You can get up to, I believe it's 63 cameras per port. And keep in mind, same with GIGI is the same with FireWire. You can mix the types. You can have a line scan versus a color camera versus a grayscale. Doesn't matter. Each camera is acting as their own frame grabber. Now with the 1394A, we're only going to be doing 32 megabytes per second, while with the B, you're going to get up to 64. Now, in the past, with the old VisionPro, I think back in 6-point-something days, what would happen would be that if a camera went down, we would pull the camera out and then we'd put another one in, but VisionPro ordered them according to serial number. So if all of a sudden your serial number changed from where it was before, because of course it would, it might change the order. So if you had multiple jobs running within your application, what would happen is all of a sudden One of the jobs might be taking an image from a different camera now. And now the tools that were set up, it would start failing and just wouldn't work. So they've changed it, and I think that it was as of 7.0, but we're using 7.2 in this class, is now it's the port. It's assigned to the port. So if I have a FireWire camera go out, I can pull it, put another one in. As long as I put it on the same port, the same job will be using that same camera. So it won't offset your application. We're also going into USB 2. I don't have a lot of information about that, but cameras are starting to come out on the USB 2.0 version of it. And so we do create the drivers in there so that we can do it through the USB 2.0 port. Once again, I don't have enough information about how well that is. I know USB in factory environment tends to be bad. If you don't control your grounds very well, you can lose communication like that. So I'd be very careful in how you're mounting cameras, because nothing worse than trying to get images and not getting anything. Then we have the 8500 series. Now when I'm talking 8500 here, now we're talking frame grabber. So the frame grabber goes into the PC. The 8500 allows for analog cameras to come into the system. So what it's going to do is that you can have either, they used to have the one, you can either have like a 1 version or 4 version, so 8501 or 8504. That's just saying whether you have one ADD converter or 4 separate ADD converters. The main differences between is if you have one ADD converter, like the 851E, you can get up to 4 images, but they're going to be serial, because only one can be using the ADD converter at a time to bring it into memory. So yeah, you could have 4 cameras and decide which one's taken when, but they all can't go at the same time. Only one can go at a time. Now if you go up to the 8504, now you have 4 separate ADD converters. So now you can have simultaneous acquisition of up to 4 cameras. So they can be coming in at the same time. Then we also have the 8514. It looks like the ones that they're putting in, because we've gone to PCI Express cards, because we're finding that our bottleneck started being the acquisition of getting the acquisition into the memory buffer of the computer. So we had to go up to PCI Express cards, because now we didn't want that to be slowing down the operation. So it looks like all these that they're quoting out here are the Express versions of them. But we also offer this 8500L, that it was just a low-cost version for people who just need a single frame grabber, only one camera, and they just needed a low cost. This tended to be more Southeast Asia, because they just wanted just something simple and keep it going. Then we have the 8600 series. So where the 8500 series was an analog camera, the 8600 series is camera length. Now what camera length brings to the list is that it gives you an assortment of cameras that now can go faster and higher res than before. It's special communications between of how it's getting the image from those cameras, so that it's basically dual tapping or even quad tapping the information to try to get that information over to the buffer or to the frame grabber as soon as possible. So we have the 8601 versions, PCIs, so you can either get one area scan or one line scan camera link camera. You can go up to the 2, so the 8602 will now allow for you to have 2 line scan or 2 area or a mix of both. Okay. Now we can also get the 8602E, which now moves it up to the PCI Express version. And what that allows is you still can support 2 base cameras, but because we've gotten it up to the Express, you can also support this one medium-sized camera, because now we've got the speeds to be able to pull this even larger image down to the PEL buffer so that we can do analysis over it. Now on the 8602E, it gives POCL. Now who knows what PoE is? What's PoE? It's power over Ethernet, exactly. So guess what POCL is? Power over camera length, exactly. It means the board itself is going to provide power to the camera. What's an advantage of that? Less cables, and sometimes that's huge. So one less cable you have to worry about running. So if you want to compare the connections, you'll notice that you've got your FireWire A, because we're only at 32, right down towards the bottom, and FireWire B is just double that. Remember Gig E, we said even though it's 1,000, the practical limit is really 100. So now we're going a little bit faster. But notice that when we start getting to the camera length, now we're going, that's about 250, and then the medium ones can go up above 500 megabits per second. So it depends on your application. Do you need speed? Do you need pixels? Or are you just looking for something, kind of down and dirty and ready to go? Keep in mind that the camera length cameras, yes, you get speed and higher res. There's also price involved there. So you need to decide, well, what do I really need for my application? We have a list whenever we do a release of software. We try to keep a list online as well as in the software telling us how many cameras we support. And as of when this was created, we supported 1,003 different cameras. So I have a little table, nice little overview of what's going on. So if you have a particular type camera, you can see, well, what type of parameters can I get with that? Or if there's a particular parameter that you care about, you can see how it goes up against each of the different hardware platforms that we support. So that takes care of hardware. I know this is kind of a boring section. Just stay with me with it. We got to crawl before we walk and walk before we run. Let's talk a little bit about the I/O. Now, being in tech support, I got asked a lot, hey, how do you connect this up with the I/O? What am I supposed to do? So what they've done, they did an awesome job when they created this PC Vision wiring guide. And this is part of the installation when you install the software inside the hardware directory. So if we go underneath Cognex, VisionPro, documentation, look underneath the hardware manuals, there will be a PC wiring guide there. And what it's going to do is it's going to show you different ways that you would wire up the hardware connections of your camera. Whether you have GigE, whether you have FireWire, whether you have an 8500 or 8600. It shows you the different ways, like, oh, are you triggering? Here's how you would do it. Oh, are you connecting up an encoder? Here's how you would do it. So they give you this. So before you call tech support, I suggest you take a look at the wiring guide. Now, if that throws you off, which I've seen a couple of confusing things in it, but for the most part, it's very, very clear, then tech support can help you out from there. Also, I/O available. Now, with the FireWire and with the GigE, remember they have their own little frame grabber on board. But so therefore there's no I/O. There's nothing that VisionPro knows about an I/O for them. So you usually need to have some type of third-party I/O. Now with triggering the cameras though, and strobing the cameras, you would normally do right on the camera itself. Like this GigE camera has part of its cable, has a little breakout connection there. That's what I would tie directly to my strobing and my triggering signal, because I would never want to go through some third-party device to strobe or trigger my camera. Can anyone guess why? I'll let you guys have that. Keep you guys awake. Windows delay latency with the CPU going out and looking at it and polling for that information. So you need that to be, direct real-time type stuff. So triggering and strobing should be done physically from the camera, and the camera manufacturer will assist you with how you would do it through them. But otherwise, just for I/O, just for information, I'm trying to get in and out of the system, we actually suggest the measurement computing cards. There's a PCI version as well as a USB version, so whichever one works for you. We already have the drivers available as part of our software. You would just choose to install them during the installation process. Doesn't mean that you can't use another type. It's just this is ones that we've already used, so we know it works, and it's just to kind of take some of the pressure off of people saying, well, what should I use? How can I? You can use this. Now with the 8500, remember it's a frame grabber, it's the PCI frame grabber that goes for the analog cameras. Because it's a frame grabber, which Cognex makes itself, we also have the I/O on board. So you can get an I/O card that will allow for you to pull it out. We've got a couple of different flavors. You can get all TTL. So if you're just doing some TTL signals, you can get 16 bidirectional programmable I/O lines, and you can configure them each individually. So they're all separate, okay? Or you can say isolated. I want some optically isolated ones. Now because optically isolated has an input and an output version to it, we've now reduced it to 8 different lines that you can have. Once again, they can each be programmed separately, like 2 can be an input and then an output and then maybe another input. And it's not like with some of them that it's whole banks that get shut off. No, not with this. Each one can be individual. Or you can do half opto, half TTL. So you're going to get 4 pairs of opto and 8 TTL. So whatever works for you. depending on your situation, whichever of those lines would work for you. Now with the 8600, this was the one I found the most confusing when I was trying to learn from it. So as I was trying to bring together the slide to try to explain what was going on, and I found there was really only one big reason that you would choose one over anything else. And that is whether you're using a line scan with encoder. And if you're using two of them, whether you want them to be controlled separately. That's really the only reason you would choose one over the other. Because you'll notice whether I use the LVDS, which LVDS comes from low voltage differential signals, that's the default one. If you don't say anything, they're going to give you that one. Notice that whether you're using LVDS, TTL, or dual LVDS, your trigger and your strobe, you're still going to get both a TTL and an LVDS selection. TTL or opto selection. So it doesn't matter which one you still have the same selection. It's when you get to the encoder that it changes. So if you do just the LVDS, it's going to give you one LVDS encoder input. Now if you're using two line scan cameras, it just means both line scan cameras are going to be working off the same encoder, which if they're on the same line, okay, that's fine. That's probably perfect for you. If you need TTL, because your encoder is a TTL, not LVDS, then you'll need to get the TTL version. And if you're doing two line scans off maybe two different lines, so two separate encoders, then you would have to get the dual LVDS, so you could get the two separate inputs for it. But as far as general purpose IOs, they all have 8 opto inputs and 8 opto outputs, which is going to be a separate connection coming from it. So you're going to need to create your own cable from it, but it's going to give you a little ribbon cable from the board and bring it out to your side panel of your PC so that you can connect into those lines. Kind of cool? Makes it a little, science project for you. Excellent. Now there are other accessories. Lighting. What we do is we offer lighting. We don't make our own lighting. We're a machine vision company. We don't get into the lighting. So what we do is we try to offer world-class vendors for lighting. So this would be things like CCS America, Advanced Illumination, or Smart Vision. A whole line of the different lights that we have offered to you. If you have very special lighting needs, we can definitely put you in touch with the lighting company, and they can assist you on creating your lighting situation. Same with lenses. We don't make our own lenses. Instead, we offer very high quality machine vision lenses. I specifically say that because they're matched up for their CCD of the camera so that you're making sure you're not getting the kind of fisheye effect and everything by hitting the sides of the lens, that you're trying to keep it as crisp as possible. So we offer lenses from like Edmund Optics, Fujinon, Cosmicar, Navitar, really good quality lenses. Once again, you can get this stuff on your own wherever you like. We just offer for one-stop shopping, that's all. So far, so good? Okay, got to keep pushing. I know, boring. Don't worry. We're getting there. Camera utilities. So we have quite a few different camera utilities to help you try to make sure the camera works. We have a Cognex GigE vision configuration utility. So one of the things that this can help you do is, first, it can help you find out whether you have some issues going on with your camera or not. Now, I've made your life easy, okay? What I've done is I have your camera directly connected up to your PC, and your PC's pulled off our network. So that way we're not looking at 11 different cameras up on the network and trying to figure out which one's ours. Okay, so I've tried to make that easy for you. But let's say that you did have a network and everything was networked up. You would be able to see all the cameras that are on the network, so you can choose from them. It'll also give you little warning signals if your IP address of your PC is not matching within the same subnet as the IP address of your camera. Kind of gives you a little warning symbol over there saying, whoa. It also lets you know whether you're having issues with IP conflict, something very quickly that you can do there. Now, this will not allow for you to change the IP address of your PC. That should be done through the normal control panel. But it does allow for you to change the IP address of your camera. So in case you're having issues, you can go in, change your camera's IP address so you can connect to it, and off you go. Perfect. We also have a DCAM, so that's our FireWire camera utility. It gives us information and some of the diagnostics about what's going on with our FireWire. Now, one thing you need to be careful of, When you're doing FireWire cameras, please make sure the camera is installed to the system when you install the drivers. Do not use the Windows generic FireWire driver. It will not work. You'll get a nice blue screen with it. So if that does happen, you have to uninstall the drivers, connect up your camera to your PC, and then install the drivers through VisionPro, and then it will install the right driver. I say this because they have like, I think it's the S100. If you see the S100 right here for it, it's letting you know this is actually the Windows driver that it's using, not the one that it's pulling from VisionPro. That should be either S400 or S800. Then we also have the 8600. Now the 8600 for the cameras, there's actually two files that go into making it work. I'm trying to remember the different names of them. I think you normally get a CFS file. When you're trying to connect up a camera to anything in VisionPro, what's going on behind the scenes is it's creating a CFS file, letting the system know, oh, this many resolution, I'm running at this speed, I'm either going to be interlaced or non-interlaced, am I doing half res, full res, or whatever. It sets the system up so it's setting up your FIFO correctly. Well, with the 8600, it not only has that, but it has another CLC file that gets associated with it. And it lets it know some special things. So that's where this camera initialization utility comes in. It allows for us to load them or save them so we can set them up. It also gives you a place to do some serial port commands. Now, these would be commands for that particular manufacturer of camera. Okay, so whatever they want that to do, those would be those commands. Those are not Cognix commands. But it allows for you to have an interface to your camera, so in case they have some cool features that you want on that camera, and it's like, okay, yeah, I want to use that, you have a way of turning them on so you can see how they do with your system. Okay? So that would be the way that you can go about connecting up for the CameraLink cameras. Okay, coming towards the home stretch. VisionPro resources. I know, you're going to get sick of my voice after a while. VisionPro resources. Like I said, when I first was learning VisionPro, they had a ton of information. But I was like, what am I supposed to do with it? You know, I'm getting all these places. Next thing I find myself is in the methods and classes. And I'm like, I don't want that. I want more information behind the scenes. I want to know why this is working the way it does. So that's where we have these resources that are available. Now we have a quick build navigator panel. This allows for us to kind of go up, see see some sample jobs here. We can look to see how to use quick build, take a tour. It shows us how to create a new quick build application or what our recent ones are. So nice little synopsis of what's going on to try to point us in the right direction. We also have our online help. And our online help is going to give us some system level access, so it talks about the VisionPro library, as well as specifics about the Vision tool itself. So you kind of understand, what am I talking about when I'm doing a Sobel filter? You know, what's actually going on there. And then a quick build. Lets you know the information about the actual quick build because they're going to come up as forms. What are all those things on the forms? What is it giving out? Then it also will give us samples. We can get samples for a quick build. We can get it for .NET or C#, or even in scripting. So it gives us a lot of base. Where do we start? How can we try to get assistance for this? So inside the installed documentation, you'll notice that we have our hardware manuals, we have an OCV Max application guide, we have a quick reference guide, as well as the online documentation. Within the hardware manual itself, we have a FireWire user guide as well as a GigE user guide. Kind of helps you out in case you're having problems with those systems. Remember, it had our PC Vision wiring guide, but also PC configuration. They try to keep that updated because since this works in a PC environment, a lot of people are like, well, can you do quad processors? Can you do 8 times octo processors? What do I need to have to make this work? As well as the hardware manuals for our frame grabbers. Inside the help file, if you open up the help file, it's going to allow for you to have content search as well as search itself, so you can look for a particular command maybe. Now, these get broken down into your application development guide, user's guide, control reference, programming reference, and release information. I'll get back to what each of those do in just one moment. Then we have the Browsigator. I always think it's a funny name they called it. Browsigator. So if you're on a tool inside a certain form in Quick Build, you can hit it, and what it's going to do is it says, okay, well, what do you want to know? You know, do you want to go to the control reference page where it would tell you, well, what are all the inputs and outputs coming from this reference in Quick Build? Then you can get to the how-to. What are you trying to figure out what to do? You know, since I'm in it, this is a PatMax tool, what am I trying to do? You know, or my theory of operation, do I just want to know how PatMax works in general? Maybe I want to know, hey, I have this DXF file. I already have this file that I had done in AutoCAD. Can I bring that image in to be the ideal image of PatMax? So they have different things that you can look for, as well as the programming interface, and documentation home just takes you home. So remember, I said the help files get broken into 5 different sections. You have your application development guide, and this is just going to give you good programming practices. It's going to tell you ideas of how you should connect up things. And then you have your user's guide. Now the user's guide is going to get right down into the how-to and the theory. It's going to be showing you what's going on when you have a caliper tool running. How is it finding, you know, the different edges? Then you have your control reference. And your control references for Quick Build is going to be each of those little tools that you put on the reference form that you get, what every single tab has, what every single input is, and what you expect to get for your outputs. Then you have your programming reference. That's where you're getting right down into your methods, your classes, and your properties. And finally, your release information. And the release information is going to tell you what the new features are, as well as release histories. It's going to tell you what is your supported platforms, as well as the cameras and the videos for this. And finally, most importantly for a lot of people, is what is the fixed bugs and what are the still known bugs, so that they kind of tell you how to work around it, saying we already know it's a bug, but this is how you would get around it. Remember, I also said there were samples. So there are some VB.NET and C# samples. So the Quick Build will actually show you the samples inside the Quick Build environment. But for the VB.NET or C#, if you go underneath C, Program Files, Cognics, VisionPro Samples, and then there's a programming directory. So if I look under here, programming, then it breaks it into different categories. So in this case, I might be trying to do some acquisition. In particular, I want to see how do I program my FireWire acquisition, and I want to do it in VB.NET. So some of them, a lot of them will have both VB.NET and C# samples. There might be some that only have C# or VB.NET. They're always working to try to add both of them as they do the releases, but it really comes down to the developer at the time, what they were writing with, and that they at least want to get something out to try to help people get started. Okay, so you can take a look at it. It gives you everything that you need to be able to set up that sample and get you rocking. Like I said, the Quick Build examples can be found right inside the Quick Build environment. So if I look down underneath, I have some scripting examples, but if I want to look at the vision tools, if I say, hey, I want to see how they're setting up a pat inspect, so I can drag that, drop that over, it'll be its own job, but that job will already have an image attached to it and be set up for your environment. So you can say, oh, that's how they worked it out. Oh, okay. And since the image will be something that's already loaded on your inside during the installation, you can then try to reconstruct it yourself. Instead of reverse engineering, say, okay, well, let me take the image, see if I can still get it set up. Oh, okay, I got this. I can do it. And then keep going. And then finally for this section, let's talk about the licensing and security, probably the most important, because it's one of those you can't get there from here. So there are 3 levels of tools that's going to suit what you need. And it's just basically comes down to performance and price. You have your VisionPro base. That's your cheapest. That's the one that just gives you the base tools. You get stuff like a correlational nonlinear search algorithm. You get histogram. You get blob. You get a caliper tools. You just get base tools. Okay? You do not get PatMax. Really, it's PatMax that's differentiating this stuff right here. Then you can go up to VisionPro Plus. And VisionPro Plus is going to add PatQuick. And we'll talk a little bit later about what's the difference between PatQuick and PatMax, but I'll leave it right now by saying PatQuick is just the first step of PatMax. It's your down and dirty, really quickly trying to find where the part is. Okay? It's going to blow any correlational, normalized correlational search out the window. Okay, so it's still going to be faster than anything else is in there, but it allows for you to try to do some pattern matching. It also will bring in your OCV and OCR tools. For those, because OCR Max has just come out in the product back in 7.2 here, it'll bring in OCR Max. Okay, so you can actually see what's going on there, as well as your ID tools. And then the final level is VisionPro Max. That's where you get the full installation of Pat Max. And so anything to do with that. So that's all the tools underneath there. Now, in order for us to allow VisionPro to work, we need licensing, and that's going to be turning on bits of what you've got. So there's a couple of different security options. So we used to start with the frame grabber. We would actually put on a little EERAM of the frame grabber. We would actually set what those bits are, so that when the software security looked at it, it said, oh, you're allowed to use these tools. Isn't that beautiful? But people started using the FireWire cameras and the GigE cameras, and there was no way for us to say what security was. So what they went to is a dongle. They said, okay, if you're using frame grabbers, we'll put it on the frame grabber. Otherwise, we'll put it on a dongle. So as long as your PC would see the dongle, it still sees, oh, you're allowed to use these tools, and I'm not going to allow for you to use it with that camera. We're good to go. But can you see where there might be issues with dongles? People were shearing them off as they walked too near the systems, or if someone wanted the night off, thank you very much. Oh, look, system down. Oh, darn, can't run. I guess I have tonight off. Yay. So, of course, businesses didn't want this. So they said, well, can you do something else other than the dongle? Can we have something that's more permanent? So what we've put out is software licensing. So that allows your PC to control it. So within the registry of your PC, you give it a license saying, I'm allowed to run these certain tools. So when the software starts up, doesn't matter whether you're using a frame grabber board, doesn't matter whether you're using FireWire or GigE, your PC is taking that. Okay. Now, if you have to do this through the licensing center. Now, if it is a hard drive edit, and if you want to put it on another PC because it's sold per license, and licenses per PC, you would need to uninstall it from this PC to move it to the other PC. Okay. And I'll talk a little bit more about what if that's not quite the case in a moment. We also offer up to 5 emergency licenses. Okay, so this is in case, well, I'll go back to this one, your hard drive dies. Because hard drives never die, do they? They just keep running forever. But on that unique case that a hard drive dies, what if this happens late on Friday evening? Because our tech support is 8 to 8 Eastern time. But what if it happens at 9? Calling up tech support, you're like, oh God. And even at, let's be serious, at late on Friday, there's nothing we're going to be able to get out for you as far as hardware. So how do you get that license going again? Well, you're allowed to have up to 5 emergency license. So what that will do is, as soon as you install it, it will allow for you to run it for 3 days with full tools. 3 days. Okay? Then it will shut itself down again. That allows for you to get through, in case it's a long weekend, to get back to Cognex and say, oh, my hard drive died. Okay, so I wasn't able to uninstall, put it up on, and install it again, but I need to get this going. So what we'll say is, okay, we know hard drives die. We'll go ahead and give you another license up inside your license utility, and now you can put it on that new PC. Now, if you're calling us every other week saying your hard drive died, we're going to question that. Okay, but that onesie-twosie thing that happens, by all means, give us a call and we will get you back going again because we know that happens. Then there's also this concept of different dongles that we have. When you first buy a VisionPro system, if you're completely new to VisionPro programming, they will sell you a starter kit. And this is just something that you need to buy. Your starter kit covers this class, but it also gives you 2 development dongles. Now you might say, what's so special about development dongles? Development dongles allows for you to have access to all the tools. Okay, all of them. There's a special key on it that lets it know that, hey, it allows for all access. And it also is time sensitive, which means it will expire within 1 year. It'll shut itself down. Unless you're on what's called a software update program, and a software update program is something your company would buy for the year. And as long as you're on this SUP, you call into tech support and you say, my dongle is almost expired, because it'll throw up a little window message when you go to start VisionPro. It says, oh, you've only got like 10 days left on your dongle. So then you call up tech support and say, hey, I have an SUP. They'll check it to make sure. And what they'll do is they'll ask you to do this cogtool space -- print to send the information from your dongle to us. So this can all be done in the field. Send it via email. We'll put it into our system, update it with the new stuff, send it back to you. All that you have is this little executable you run, and it will update your dongle for up to a year. If you've only got like 10 days left on your SUP, I suggest you do it before your SUP expires, because we'll still extend it for a year before you know, it's not like we extend it to the end of your SUP. It's a year from that date. Now with your, oh, and one of the other things I wanted to state was we were saying that it has all the tools. Let's say OCR Max, it just came out with the last release that we had. Let's say you had your development dongle back a year ago, you know, so it was way before OCR Max came out, but you want to use OCR Max. Because it's a development dongle, it knows when you have the new software in it that it has new tools, and it lets you have access to the new tools. So now you have OCR Max as soon as it comes out with the software. You don't have to send back in the dongle and say, hey, can you add that tool to it? No, because like I said, it has a special tool in it saying any tools that you have in this software, you know, I'm going to allow for you to use it. Okay? Now you can also get deployment dongles. Deployment dongles are not time-based. Okay? When you buy it, it's good for the life of that dongle. Doesn't expire. These are for people who are trying to deploy their system, but they're using Gigi cameras or FireWire and they want to use a dongle-based. So you choose which tools that you have. So what happens with that one is if you set that one up and all of a sudden OCR Max comes out and you want OCR Max on your customer's PC, you need to go buy the tool for OCR Max. They can still do it in the field. They can still upgrade it in the field, but they're going to ask for the charge for the OCR Max tool, give you an upgrade to that dongle, and now that particular dongle will now be able to run OCR Max. Because when you're in deployment, we figure you are in deployment. You've already got all your tools set. You've already got them where you want them to be. So anything that you want to add, of course, that's going to be a little bit of a charge, because now you're changing what that development was. I always caution this. Be careful when you're doing development. Make sure you know the tool set of the customer it's going to, because remember, if you're using a development dongle, you have all the tools. If you forget your customer doesn't have, let's say, OCR Max, and you're like, yeah, that's cool, I'll just add that in. When they go to use it, it won't allow them to use that tool. Okay, so just be careful of that. Inside our Software Licensing Center, this is where we'll actually show you how many of the emergency licenses that you've used, as well as if you've actually put a license in there. It has the different places that allows for you to install the license or uninstall it, also to repair it in case something seems to have gone wrong with it. It also allows for you if your system is not online, like you're not on the network, no problem. It's just you need to send, you have to be able to get that little piece of information, that packet of information to someplace that has email and send it to us so that we can give you the confirmation. But then the confirmation comes back in and then you finish your offline transaction and then it has your PC up and going with that particular license. Kind of new, cool, neat, helps you out. So VisionPro, we support quite a few different cameras. That's one of the powers of VisionPro is because it really offers you a very large selection of cameras, resolutions, and it tries to keep with the newer stuff. You know, as newer cameras come out, customers ask us about it, we try it out, and it might not even be a blessed camera yet, but it might be on our list that we've tried it. And so yes, we have the files that you might need to get it to work for your system. We also have built-in camera utilities to help you connect and configure your cameras. Keep in mind we've got a lot of documentation in there, a lot of resources, so sometimes you have to think about where you're looking, but it does definitely help you. Their documentation is incredible. And also keep in mind that you do have license-based for this. If you don't have license, whether it's a hardware or software license, VisionPro will not run if it doesn't see the license. So the last thing that I want to do is usually if we were to take this on the road, oh, who am I kidding? We don't do VisionPro on the road except for like a single customer. We would normally put together the system. But what I'd like for you to do is just take a moment now to take a look at how this system is set up. So what we have our Gigi camera sitting in front of us, and it's actually feeding down, so we have the power cable from it. I'm not using the I/O for it, it's just hanging off here. And then I have just a Cat5 cable coming in underneath and going to the PC. Okay, so that's how the PC knows what's going on with our Gigi camera. Then the PC, I actually have it pulled off the network, so it's on the same subnet as your camera. And let's go ahead and try to run that Gigi configuration utility just to see how things look. So if I go down to my Start menu here, open this up. Now for some of you, you might see it up in this list right now, but I'm going to go ahead and go through where it would be. I'm going to say All Programs, go to Cognex, down to VisionPro, And you'll notice that it has this wizard, which we'll talk about tomorrow. We have the actual quick build starter program right there, our documentation and our utilities. So if I click on my utilities, notice it gives us a Gigi Vision configuration utility. A couple of other things I want to point out here is, look, it has an IDB editor. An IDB file, also a CDB file, they're usually multiple pictures within the same file. A lot of people are like, well, what if I want to add some bitmaps to mine? Here's an editor that will allow for you to add bitmaps, remove them, take a look at them. A lot of people have asked me this, like, how do I get to it? So I just want to point it out while I'm looking there now so you know you have it. And our camera length and firewires right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right to the Gigi Vision configuration tool and open that up. So it's going out there and it's checking the network to see what's all out there. Now right now mine is actually on the network. Mine's the only camera that's actually on the network here, but all of you are a direct connect. So you should see your camera sitting here. Now if there's a little like triangle next to it, then maybe it's having some type of conflict. It's letting you know that. But right now mine's saying, okay, it's 192, 150, 168, 150, 141. And it even gives me information about it. If I were to click on my camera itself, notice it gives me what the vendor was, what type it is, the serial number, the MAC address, what's the host IP address, so it's letting me know what my PC is, so that might help me set up what the actual one for the camera would be. Because no need putting it off the network if I don't need to. So if I change these, all I need to do is say update the camera address, and then it will update it to the camera. I don't have to have some separate utility from the actual manufacturer itself. All Gigi cameras, because it is Gigi Vision, have to have this type technology there. Okay. Any questions, concerns? Cool? Okay.